keep on going. Right. So, I'm going to look at this question 7 first, because this isn't too bad, all right? So, what's the square root of 49? It's 7. What's the square root of -1? Remember, it's I. And that's it. That really is only the old answer for question 7. The answer to that, when you multiply them, is 7i. Okay? Now, I want to concentrate on question 6, because this can cause a little bit of confusion here, because imagine if I wanted to combine those two things into a single square root. In other words, if I say, oh, it's -10 times -4, that's positive 40. So really, it doesn't involve any negatives, it's not going to involve the letter I. Well, that's not actually how you do it, okay? You've actually, a bit like please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you've got to sort out what these are first, okay, so let's underline these, before you multiply them together. So here I multiply them together, and it made life so much easier, but no, right? Okay, let's get some erasing going. So what I'm going to do is this. I am going to decide, right, the square root of -10, all I can write, can't break it down into anything, there's no two numbers that make 10, as in one of which I can square root, 2 and 5, no, can't square root that. So all I'm going to write is this, it's I root 10, okay? That is how I'd write the square root of -10. It's a root 10 with an I in front of it. Now, what's the square root of -4? That's nicely available, I can do that. That is 2i. Okay, so that's it. If I multiply those two together, I get this. Right, so I get 2 root 10. Okay, that's just the 2 part and the root 10 part. And what's I times I? Well, just like x times x, it's I squared. Now, here's the important thing. Remember this. Okay, we said that I equals the square root of -1. That's how they define it. Okay? Whoever decided on this hundreds of years ago, that's a mathematician, that's how we define it. Now think about this, okay? If I square both sides, which we've been doing, I squared is, remember, if you square a square root, it's just the thing inside. All of a sudden, I squared is actually a nice integer. It's negative. So look at this. This thing here, up here, this is -1. So what I'm actually doing is saying this. I've got a 2 root 10, and I'm multiplying it by I squared, which is actually -1. You multiply something by -1, all you're doing is changing the sign. That is the answer, okay? That is the answer to the square root of -10 times the square root of -4. And that's because I worked everything out first in terms of I, and then eventually multiplied together, but there's this little sneaky little thing called I squared. All right? If you've got an I squared, that is -1. So if I could just go back and do this, I'll leave the answer there. So remember what I originally thought, maybe I would do it this way, and I said, well, supposing you just multiply those two together and you got the square root of positive 40. Remember, this is wrong, right? Well, 40, you can split into root 4, root 10. Well, that'll give you 2 root 10 as the answer. But it's not, of course, look. It's -2 root 10. So you can't just combine these two together and go, oof, that made life and easy. All of a sudden it's positive because 2 negatives. No, you actually have to work out what each one of these is in first in terms of I. Then when you multiply them together, you'll get an I squared. That's -1. Okay, so just think about that. I mean, let's just try question 8. Actually, question 6 is the hardest one, because question 8 I think is not too bad. Okay, root 2 is just root 2. Root 27, okay, I can think of that as, think about a positive for now. 27, remember, is root 9. Sorry, 9 times 3, okay? I can square root the 9, that's 3. So the answer would be 3 root 3, okay? If it was positive 27, it's -27, so it's 3i root 3. Still got a root 2. Okay, now I'm going to multiply these two together. All I can really do is do root 2 times root 3 is root 6. So the answer is 3i root 6. Okay, so that's the answer to that one. But you probably could have done that without in other words, if I'd have done this, pretended, oh, I can combine those two and call it negative 54, all right, you would have ended up with this anyway, all right? So really the trick one was question 6, which had both of them as the square root of negative numbers. You can't just combine it into a positive 40, you have to deal with them individually, so they've both got terms of I, then you'll end up with an I squared, so that ends up changing the sign. Again, let's go back to this, you see. It's negative 2 root 10, not positive 2 root 10, okay? Because that is not what I'm going to do, all right?